What is up, Rio Hondo football fans? It is almost Friday, and I am very much in love. It is postseason time. It is Rio Hondo Prep football time for the 27th time consecutively. Rio Hondo is in the postseason. They will be playing at Norwalk High School this Friday night at 7 o'clock, just down the 605 freeway. I hope you guys will be able to get out to this game, an 8-1 versus a 9-1. You know what? Whatever the CIF pairings are, this is what it is. So Rio Hondo opens with the Norwalk Lancers, a very tough team, a team that runs the ball at will, 350 yards per game, has only thrown 12 passes on the season. So it's going to be a lot of the whole game in the trenches here. Rio runs the ball pretty well, but Norwalk runs the ball excellent and very, very well. So going to be a tough test, and I hope you guys are fired up. You guys are ready for this. We've been working at this for months. We've been, the kids have been practicing, the coaches have been preparing. We've been here working on the podcast nonstop, trying to bring you guys content. I can't believe the playoffs are finally here. We've turned the calendar from October. It is now November, and that is playoff time. It's colder outside. Every snap matters a little more, and I really, really hope you guys are able to get out to this game on Friday night. You don't want to miss this. No more excuses about, well, I'll go to next week's game. You know what? There may not be a next week's game. It is time to show up for those boys out there, the Rio Hondo alumni. You know who you are. Get out to this ball game here on Friday night. It's Friday. I am in love. I hope you guys are as well. Where do I start today? It's Thursday night before the game. You guys know we release these pregame shows 24 hours before kickoff. So 7 o'clock tonight, you guys will be listening to this, or maybe on the way to the game on Friday, the first round matchup between Norwalk and Rio Hondo Prep. I will say that we have two excellent guests on the program today. First, we're going to be joined by the writer-editor for 210 Prep Sports, Brian Reed-Baiotto. Excuse me. I had it memorized and I messed it up. Brian Reed-Baiotto. We sat down and had a conversation not too long ago about Rio Hondo Prep and the football program and his coverage of Rio sports. And he had some great things to say about Rio. So can't wait for you guys to hear that. And then finally, to take us into Friday night for the postseason is Josh Coulter from the class of 1998. He was a quarterback he was on two championship teams in 96 and 97, quarterback of one of those teams, and then switched to fullback there for his senior season. So rather unique switch, but hey, that's Rio Hondo Prep. We get all kinds of stuff like that. But Josh Coulter will be joining me, or I will be sharing our interview that he joined me not too long ago from Dallas, Texas. Had some great things to say about the Rio program. So the playoffs are here. I thought let's go all in. Let's bring these guys two great interviews today to get you ready for the big football game against Norwalk. Before I go into kind of my analysis and things for the game, I got a question, or a comment, I should say, from Tracy McFate, who was on the podcast a few weeks ago, the former football official in the Foothill Citrus area. He sent me an email that said, playoff thoughts. He says, too much emphasis from Cal Preps. How do they justify Alemany, who is 2-7 overall and 0-5 in league, and not only making the playoffs, but getting a home game in the first round, while 10-0 Charter Oak goes on the road to play 10-0 Yorba Linda? I've been around a long time, and I don't get it. Not many people get it, Tracy. I don't get it myself. It's wild. It's maybe dumb. It's foolish. Whatever this change to the postseason we've seen from CIF the past couple of years, I don't think it's working out. Now, some would say, well, you get some teams that have never been there that are there now. Well, have they earned their way into there, into the postseason? Alemany, 2-7 in the postseason, 0-5 in league. How do you justify putting a team in like that? There's no excuse for that. And our brothers to the east in Charter Oak, just down Cypress by Wingate Park, for them to be paired up against a 10-0 Yorba Linda team, that's unacceptable. I don't know what's going on, CIF, and I won't get on them too much here because we got better things to talk about. But this CIF playoff format, it's not working. There's too many problems. So rather than polish it up, why don't we go back to some better idea? Enrollment, I think that still matters. Now, some teams are really good with a small enrollment. Arguably, Rio Hondo is. Okay, bump them up. But there should be criteria, not Cal Preps, where Rio probably could have been placed in Division 11 and made some noise, and now they got a pretty tough opponent here in Norwalk. I'm not complaining. I think whoever's in front of you is who you got to play. And I'm very excited for another opportunity for Rio Hondo to possibly slay another giant. This team that we're playing on Friday night against Norwalk, they have an offensive line that averages 270 pounds a man, and that is 30 pounds, maybe 40 pounds bigger than our biggest man, Ryan McCullough. So make no mistake about it. This is a David and Goliath game, much like last year was in Charter Oak, although a very different look that we will see from the Norwalk Lancers. Wing T, double tight end, two wing backs, a big fullback. I mean, this guy's big. He reminds me of the guy, who was it, at Boron earlier in the year. Big round bowling ball that will run you over at the goal line. But two very quick running backs who each have rushed for over 1,000 yards, although one of those running backs, Dave Herrera, number 31, he is out for the season with a dislocated elbow. So Rio does catch somewhat of a break there in the upcoming game, but still a tall task for the Cares. I think they're up for it. You know what? I do know this. Come Friday night, right around 9:30, 10 o'clock, we're going to be proud of those Rio Hondo Cares, because you know what? We know they're going to give great effort. We know they're going to make the Rio Hondo crest on their helmet. And everyone who's played before them, they're going to make us proud. And do I want a victory here? Well, absolutely. Just like everyone else does. Can they do it? Is there Rio Hondo magic? I believe there is. I talked to Coach Carson last Sunday, like I do every Sunday, and on the podcast, and he said he believes Rio Hondo magic is real, and maybe it's the ghosts of RHP coming together. You'll hear some great things from our guest today, Brian Reed-Baiotto, who has kind of some thoughts on that Rio Hondo magic and the way in which they do things. And maybe there's a reason why they end up being the underdogs all the time, but come up on top most of the time. So can't wait for you guys to hear these interviews. But Rio Hondo is up to a tall task on Friday night, guys. We need everybody there, every person we could see. Don't wear any shade of purple. That's what color Norwalk is. But no excuses. The 605 freeway is a nightmare on Fridays. Get down there if you can. I know that people have been out of work a lot the past couple of years, but maybe just one more time, there's an opportunity to sneak out of work early and get down the 605 to Norwalk High School and support this team. Last year at Charter Oak in the first round of the playoffs, those bleachers were phenomenal. Charter Oak had dozens of people in the stands and needed the Rio faithful to operate their own chain crew at the home side of Charter Oak. So I'm expecting nothing but the best support from the fan base in getting there early, setting up shop, and showing the boys when they come out of the tunnel and for warmups and everything that the Rio Hondo faithful, the Rio Hondo family has their back. So if you can't get to this game, you're out of state or something, I believe you should be able to watch it on the NFHS network. They should have the broadcast back. Last week, there was some fiasco with Campbell Hall running the show, and they didn't have quite the feed or whatever that we usually do. So I'm hoping that Clark Bollinger and Kyle Horton will be doing their thing, hopefully here for those that are out of the area and can't make it. But be sure to come if you can. This could be the last game of the year. I don't want to think that way, but it could. Much like I said, last week was a playoff game. So is this one. This is an actual playoff game, and the winner moves on and the loser goes home. Loser starts shooting baskets, right, or preparing for a baseball or something. So the time is now, guys. It's Friday. I'm in love. I'm excited for this football game. I will be there with full coverage like I usually do, with an interview with Coach Carson, behind the scenes footage, video clips, things like that. And of course, post game accordingly, however the turnout goes. So this thing's been going since the springtime with Rio and preparing, after baseball season into the summer, a lot of weightlifting, a lot of passing leagues into August with practices and the season getting going. Just think, it feels like we just got started, right? With the podcast and the weekly coverage, the pregame show on Thursday nights / Friday mornings, the game recap shows on Sunday with Coach Carson, a player, a member of the alumni usually. It's been a fun run, but I'm not ready for this to end. Neither are you guys. And I posted some videos, some motivational things on Instagram and Facebook to kind of get the boys ready for this. And it does feel like that scene in Gladiator where, they're waiting for what's coming out of those gates. And Maximus says, hey, if we stick together, whatever comes out of those gates, we will survive if we stick together. And that's how I feel about this team on Friday night. If you haven't seen those clips, be sure to go check them out on our Instagram and Facebook and all over the place. So got to stop the run. Whoever controls the clock in this game, the time of possession, I think is going to win the football game. We know what Norwalk does: the double wing, the reverses, the inside handoffs, the three yards in a cloud of dust. Can Rio Hondo hold on? Can they get some tackles for losses? Can they get some fourth down stops, to swing the game? We always talk about turnovers with Coach Carson, but I think this is a game where you gotta, hang in there, bend, don't break, and make a few fourth down stops and not let Norwalk get rolling, not let them break anything long. We saw that last week at Campbell Hall, one long run that the Cares rebounded from and shut out the Vikings the rest of the game. But if you can frustrate Norwalk just enough where they're getting 3 yards, 2 yards, -1, 4 yards, they can't quite break something the way they're used to doing, then you know what? I think good things could happen. You can't get frustrated giving up first downs. This is an offense in the wing T that stays committed. They stay consistent. They stick with it. Like Coach Boone said in Remember the Titans, although that was a split veer offense, but he says, like Novocaine, works every time, just give it time. And so the defense for the Cares really, really has to bear down, not give up the big play, bend, don't break, sure tackles, and you cannot get blown off the ball. This team is very big up front. You're going to see a lot of pulling guard and pulling tackles that will take you to the football. You can't be manipulated with all the misdirection and everything. You got to play assignment football, hold your gap. Low man wins. Do not get blown back. You just cannot have that stuff here on Friday night in the playoffs. And then offensively, I liked what I saw last week. A lot of running the football, which Rio does well. I have faith in Alex Mustaine, the junior quarterback, to step in and lead this team once again. Of course, there will be some balls in the air, but I think if Rio Hondo can kind of do what Norwalk is used to doing, control the clock, use 3 or 4 different running backs, some misdirection, block well up front, they could frustrate the Lancers into maybe panicking and not knowing what to do. I think Rio Hondo cannot panic if they get down early by 1 or a couple of scores. Just stay the course. And things will work out. This team is ready to go. Coach Carson has them ready on defense. Coach Randy Johnson has them ready to go on offense. I'm confident in a superb effort tonight or tomorrow night, excuse me. And man, I'm so excited for this thing. We got to control our emotions. I'm going to do my best. I don't have to play the game, so you know how it is for us fans and the parents. I got to imagine watching it. It's almost more nervous than the kids out there and what they're doing. So Ryan McCullough, I'm sure, will have this team ready, leading the way, as well as the other team captains on this ball club. Looking for senior Anthony Hernandez to have a big night. Nate Curtis, with all the attention on McCullough, maybe Curtis and Peninari end up slicing through the defense. I think one weakness that Norwalk has, at least in my eyes, is they don't tackle that well. They score a lot of points with this wing T offense, but they're more of a, make a handful of good plays on defense. As far as consistent defense, I don't think that's their forte, but you never know. They may throw a bunch of big guys up in front where we can't move them, can't create holes. Time will tell. This game will tell. Throw the records out the window, even though they each have 1 loss. And it's time to play some playoff football. Here we go, guys. Here we go. I'm hoping for a long month of November here, but it's one game at a time, one snap at a time. And let's get this thing kicked off. All right, let's go to our guest. Our first one, I should say. We're going to be joined by Brian Reed-Baiotto, who is a writer-editor for 210 Prep Sports. You see most of his articles on after Rio Hondo games. He's the one who puts all that out, whether it's on Facebook or Twitter. I usually share his work. He has a great relationship with Coach Mark Carson, and was also did a lead story there with Ryan McCullough when he announced his college decision back in the beginning of the season as well. So a lot of connection here to the program. He's not affiliated with Rio Hondo at all. He just respects the program and will give us some insight as to where Rio Hondo fits among the other great programs in the area. So without further ado, let's bring on our first guest for this special playoff edition of the Rio Hondo Charge to Keep podcast, and bring on senior writer editor for 210 Prep Sports, Brian Reed-Baiotto. Okay, I am now joined by a sports editor for the 210 Prep Sports website. He writes a lot of the articles for Rio Hondo Prep after their games. We're going to talk some Rio sports with him today and some other maybe local football. I'm joined today by Brian Reed-Baiotto. How's it going, Brian?
Hey, Matt, going well. Good to finally catch up with you after all the times we've tried after I got COVID and all that. I apologize for how long this has taken.
Hey, it's no problem. It's kind of fitting that we're meeting here in the second season during the playoffs. So that kind of works for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Brian, you're someone that has really given Rio Hondo a lot of love, I'll say. I don't know how else to put it. Rio to me is very special, but you as someone who didn't go there, you still seem to put a lot of emphasis into the writings the past couple of years for some really good teams. How did you discover Rio Hondo? Did they step out or stand out to you a little bit? What's the story behind your coverage of us?
Well, it was really interesting. I was covering certain teams for another site, and then I started shooting sports, and someone said, hey, it was the mother of a baseball player, and she said, I think the last name was Vasquez, but I'm not sure, and it was during their CIF championship run, whatever year that was. And she said, hey, we love reading your stuff. Is there any chance you'd cover Rio Hondo Prep? And she was so nice about it that I'm like, you know what, as long as I can get this, and this, and what I mean by this, and this is stats, a picture, and, somebody to contact if I need to verify anything. And she took care of that. Even though they only have 125 students, every story was like 1,000 or 1,500 reads, if not more. And the coaches were appreciative, the parents, and to this day, they still are. Mark Carson is great in getting me info, and he's super appreciative. And so I love that school. And there's something about them being the underdog, the little guys, the guys that do it right. Guys like Jonathan Guerrero and Gio Ortega, and I got to know Evan Four during his run for the baseball, and the girls softball. And there's nobody that's better, and I'm not joking when I say this, even at the college level, than Harry Joe sending football stats. His stats are so detailed that I could write forever, and I appreciate Harry so much. And then Susan Coulter 99% of the time sends me really great photos afterwards, so it's like, they do their part, and I'm happy to do mine.
Well, we're happy to make it easier for you. I think Rio Hondo really, the kids and the staff, everyone does so much there. They want to try to do so many things well. And to your point, it sure sounds like they did. I asked Coach Carson about you, Brian. Just, hey, can I get a quote on Brian, since I'm going to talk to him? He said, Brian is a real pro. He gets high school sports. He covers high school sports better than anyone. He's been a great friend to our program, and he understands what we're all about.
I love Mark. He's great, and his players are too. Even this year, Ryan McCulloch. Even though I think he consider him, along with the kid from Monrovia, the wide receiver, and Richie Munoz, the quarterback at Charter Oak, probably the three best athletes in the entire San Gabriel, in my opinion. Yeah. And they're just, the kids there are so likable. And what I love about Rio Hondo Prep is, here they are, this group of guys that most of them go both ways. Most of them play three sports, in all three seasons. And yet they walk on a field. The other team sees the number of players, or they see the size of some of the kids. We got this. Next thing you know, you look up at the scoreboard, and Rio Hondo Prep walks. A perfect example is last year they beat Charter Oak because they had a 20. Do you remember that game? They had a 20-minute time of possession advantage to beat a team of that caliber in the playoff. I mean, what Mark has done in the time that I've run Rio Hondo Prep Sports, I have 27 football programs I cover, and Mark Coleman has literally the #1 winning percentage among all 27 or 28 coaches. And then AJ Gracia at Ayala would be 2, and then Brandon or Glendora 3. But among all those schools, Damien, Rancho, all those schools, Mark Coleman. I mean, not Mark Coleman. I'm Carson. Sorry. Mark Carson. I'm sorry, Mark. That was such a huge mistake. Mark Carson has the #1 winning percentage of any San Gabriel Valley area coach in my coverage zone, which is 27 or 28 teams.
Wow. Now, what would you say, Brian, to the critics of that? Let's say, because we get this all the time, and we have to beat teams like Charter Oak to really open people's eyes. What do you say to the critics of that just said, well, Rio Hondo, they're just a tiny school. They play in the lowest divisions. Those wins are nice, but they're really not as significant as some of the older and bigger programs.
Well, they are who they are. They play who's out in front of them, and they beat them, and they beat them badly. I was doing my math last year, my stats, and they're beating teams by they're beating teams by 30, 40 points. And then what a lot of people don't understand is Carson takes the foot off because he's a classy guy. He takes his foot off the pedal when they're up by 30 or whatever. They could win games by 60 and 70 most weeks. This year's a little bit different. I remember interviewing Ryan. I think it was about 3 weeks before the season. I met Ryan and Mark Carson in their weight room, and John Guerrero, who goes to Citrus, was there working out with him. And we were talking, and I said, how do you expect this year to go? And at the time it was off the record, but now it's on. He said, well, we're going to be competitive, but I don't think we're going to win games by 30 or 40 or whatever. I don't know if he knew they were going to be 8-1. I think he was thinking more on the lines of 6-3 or whatever. He didn't know what they had, but this group, just like every group that he's had, and they tend to overachieve would be a nice way of saying it in other people's eyes. But to him and to the kids, they're doing what they're capable of doing, which is really cool. And I like the fact that they take all this BS from outside schools, but they just keep winning and winning and winning, and they do it the right way. They're not the kind of team when they're up 30 that's going to be talking trash or rubbing it in or this or that and the other. So people are always going to complain about something that's the way it is. You can only play who's on your schedule. They have 125 students, and they've beaten teams that most people think they shouldn't beat. And Charter Oak would be a great example of that.
Yeah, that was arguably the biggest win in our school's history. We've won a lot of 8-man championships, multiple in the 11-man era, even a 6-man in there way back when. I don't know how many schools have a 6-man, an 8-man, and 11-man championship on their resume, but I think respect has been earned over the years. And some things never change, though, Brian. Yeah, these teams still show up. El Monte in week 1 show up. They look down at our guys. They start laughing. We beat them by 4 touchdowns. I mean, this team has, I think, overachieved. They are led by, in my opinion, one of the best players, if not the best player in the San Gabriel Valley, and maybe beyond that. But I find it hard to, or people would find this hard to believe, that this team, the majority of them are underclassmen. Not only that, freshmen. I mean, it's a really great balance of Ryan McCullough and some great seniors and juniors, but there's a ton of freshmen on this team. So I think the future is really, really bright as well.
One cool thing about Mark too is that he knows how late I write on Friday, because there's so many games, so much information to write. And he texted me, oh, actually, did they play on, they played last Friday, but it was a 6 o'clock game, right?
Mm-hmm.
He texted me and he said, Ryan's performance last Friday at Campbell Hall was arguably, or probably, and he's been there for a long time, even though he's only been the head coach for 4 years or 5 years, he's been there forever, right? As a defensive coordinator or whatever. Mm-hmm. He said McCulloch's performance, both sides of the ball, was the most dominating performance. I think he had something like 9 tackles and 3 sacks. He had almost 200 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns, and they weren't like 4-yard touchdowns. One was 50 something, and so, yeah, Ryan's an unbelievable athlete. And what people don't know outside of Rio Hondo Prep is Armando Carbajal was having such a huge year for the Cares, and I think he threw 8 or 9 touchdowns. He threw for almost 900 yards, which nobody had done before. Was it Jack Van Cleve, the quarterback? So it had been 4 or 5 years since someone had done that, 3 or 4 years. He had rushed for another however many, but Mark said Armando surprisingly was even more valuable on the defensive side of the ball. So that was a huge loss. And so I'm going to be honest, I was surprised when I got his text that they beat Campbell Hall at Campbell Hall, because I thought the loss of Armando was going to be such a big deal. And so I was so happy to see that they had won. They just have more guys. Is it Curtis or Noah that's the freshman?
Noah Peninari is the freshman, and Nate Curtis is a sophomore.
Okay. So like Curtis has 315 yards receiving, rushing, 3 touchdowns, another 400 receiving, and 7 touchdowns. So, I mean, here's a young guy doing it and you guys don't throw the ball much. I mean, that's not what Rio Hondo Prep does. So to see some of these numbers, Noah has 500 yards rushing and 3 TDs. Ryan has almost 800 yards and 9 touchdowns, and then another 15 catches for 210 yards and 3 TDs. So a lot of different guys are doing their part. The defense has stepped up all year. They've only allowed 101 points in 9 games. And I was doing the math, though. I was telling you about Mark saying that it wouldn't be blowouts as much. This year, they've scored 276 points in 9 games. Last year, they scored 389. So that's 113 less through 9 games. But they're 8-1. I mean, so Mark and his staff and his players always find a way to get the job done based on what their strengths and what their weaknesses are.
You watch a lot of football. You know a lot of teams in the area. I officiated football at the Foothill Citrus area for 10 years. I saw a lot of different programs. I'm not saying Rio can necessarily be up there with someone like Bishop Ahmad or something, but they did beat Charter Oak last year, one of the best Rio teams ever. But if you had to throw a few names out there, what are some, I don't know, leagues or maybe some teams that Rio Hondo could compete against, or maybe you just like to see them match up against in the near future?
Well, first of all, I don't cover Ahmad. I cover teams along the 210 from Rancho to La Cañada. And then because when I was at the Tribune, I had relationships already in place, like at Northview, at Covina, West Covina, South Hills. And then I go as far south as Ayala because they're in a league with Glendora, Alta Loma, Bonita, teams that I already covered, and they're really good too. Ayala's right there with Rio Hondo Prep in terms of how much information they get me, how supportive they are. But in my area, from the east to the west, obviously Rancho Cucamonga is an amazing program. Rio wouldn't do well in the baseline league football. It's just huge schools, but I think they could. I know for a fact that they would win the Montview League with Azusa and Gladstone and Duarte and Workman. I don't think they do too well in the. Well, it's so crazy because now all the football leagues used to be the same teams in the same name league. Now there's a bunch of 4-team leagues, but there are a lot of teams in the San Gabriel Valley that Rio Hondo Prep, if they didn't beat them, would at least give them a game. And I think if people outside of Rio Hondo Prep heard this, they'd probably laugh, like, what are you talking about? But if you saw the way they play, if you see how they it's just as cerebral as it is physical for Rio Hondo Prep. And so I think they do a lot better than a lot of people think. But it's so crazy now because instead of, say, 6 leagues with 5 or 6 teams in it, we have so many of just 4 teams. And there's really one of the things I don't like about it, aside from, as you know, the playoff pairings, that formula is horrible, is I don't like the fact that when you change these leagues into 4 little leagues, all those already, established rivalries are gone. When I was in high school in the late 80s, I went to Glendora High, and our rival, who we hated, not in a bad way, but in like was Damien, 5 minutes away, great high school. But not only do we not play Damien in sports, they're not in the league. They're not a rival anymore. Same with SC and UCLA supposedly leaving the Pac-12. Whatever happened to like those good old rivalries that people from all generation after generation could not only compete in but like enjoy? So there are so many teams. I think, like I said, that I think whether Rio Hondo Prep beat them or not, I think they'd be shocked how Rio Hondo Prep could stay in games with a lot of huge schools, 3, 4, 5. Mark and I were talking last year, and Evan Forrest's sister was the softball pitcher, and they were playing, I think it was only the second round of the softball playoffs. And he was saying it had to be the biggest disparity in enrollment that he'd ever seen. It was like 4,500 at Fountain Valley to 125 at Rio. And Rio hung in with the number 1 seeds for quite a while before they pulled away. So they are the ultimate underdogs, in my opinion, in all sports. But, obviously soccer and football, since I've started covering, are by far the most successful at Rio Hondo Prep.
No, I think that they wear it with a badge of honor, the ultimate underdogs. You want the program to grow and to gain that respect. But at the same time, when you kind of don't have that, it's like, oh, we wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, you're just the stepbrothers or whatever that we are. Was there a moment you talked about other teams seeing Rio and being surprised? Was there a moment early on before all the stats and photos and things were given to you where you first saw Rio and were like, wait a minute, how did these guys compete in this game? Was there a moment for you?
No, because of all the teams I cover, and most of them play on Friday, so I'm only able to go to one. And I don't go to a lot of Rio games because, and I hope Harry doesn't get mad to hear this, but he is so reliable that what's the point of me going there?
Lost the. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Brian, you were saying that you don't get out to many Rio Hondo games, but you are able to write a lot of the articles because you're covering other schools as well.
Well, like I said, Harry Joe is the gold standard for sending stats and information. And I don't know if have you ever seen his stats?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Time. So it doesn't make any sense as a one-man site to go to a game where I already am going to get pictures and stats. And so I can count on Harry, and it's literally like I'm there. And of course, like I told you, Mark will answer a text message on Friday nights at 1 a.m. That's how cool he is. I think he's probably just amped up from a win. Football is the most emotional sport for a guy that there is. But so I don't go to many of their games. I try to go to one a year. And I went last year to the end, and I covered Guerrero passing the 3,000 yard rushing mark. And so I don't go to a lot of their games, but I can't, just like Ayala, just like some of the other schools that are really good at sending me information. So yeah, I'm not able, but that said, I think when I first started noticing it is when I started this, one of the smaller schools along with Rio was Maranatha. And at the time, I don't know if you know who Steve Bogan is. He's now at Bonita. He won four titles at South Hills. I was at a Maranatha game. I'm not joking when I tell you this, Matt. I think they had 6 reserves on the sideline when the 11 guys were on the field. And that also happened at a Rio Hondo Prep game one year. And I think the guy's name, Jonathan Guerrero, only got a start his freshman year because a guy named Bryant, was his last name Flores?
Flores, yes.
Got hurt. And in his first game, I think Jonathan went off for almost 200 yards and this and that. And now he's playing at Citrus College for an undefeated team. And so when you see the numbers and you see there are a lot more guys that are built like Gio and Jonathan than they are like like Brian McCulloch. And then next thing you know, Gio Ortega and Jonathan are 2 of the best kids pound for pound that I've ever seen play football over the years, because you look at them going head to head with someone 6'1" and 180, and it's those kids on their asses and not Jonathan, not Gio. They're running past the kid or they're running over a kid. And it is just such an amazing thing to see. I don't know what it is about the kids at Rio Hondo Prep. Well, not only that, but they're intelligent kids too. When I've done features on Rio Hondo Prep, the GPAs, I don't think have ever been less than 3.3 or 3.5, and way more times than not, they're closer to 4.0, if not over it. So it's just an impressive school and group of kids. And I've never once heard a Rio Hondo kid prep. Not that this is necessarily a great thing. I mean, it is to the parents and the administrators. I've never heard a kid cuss on the sidelines at a Rio Hondo Prep game. And I've been at a lot of Christian and Catholic schools, and they swear just as much as kids, and Rio Hondo Prep, they just handle themselves in a very classy way. So I can't help but respect them.
Well, thank you so much for that. That is something that means a lot more than a lot of the wins, I think, to a lot of people listening out there. There's a right way to do things, and Rio Hondo tries to carry themselves accordingly. We talked a lot about Coach Carson. I mean, Ryan McCall is having a heck of a year. Last week, he had an amazing game. We talked about that. But in this era where kids go to multiple high schools now, they transfer around. We are so blessed to have a guy like Ryan who stuck around when he didn't have many senior classmates. He didn't have many junior classmates even. He had a great teammates last year, and it's no knock on his teammates, his upperclassmen this year, but he had a bunch of young guys that he was going to play with, and Ryan stuck around, and he was loyal, and he's embraced the role of being the leader. It's nice to see an impartial perspective. I'm going to try to have and say that it's cool to see a guy stick around for 4 years when he probably could have gone somewhere else to try to be a bigger star.
He could have gone the way some of these kids do it. Ryan could have Ryan could have basically written his name on a sheet and gone to where he wanted. And he's such an appreciative, thoughtful, and intelligent kid. I was going to tell you, when I covered LaSalle, I think it was about 5 years ago. This is not a joke. They had a freshman that played in that Snoop whatever football league before high school, that Snoop Dogg has at Citrus College or whatever. His first year was at LaSalle. His second year started at Arcadia. Then he transferred to Los Alamitos. Then he went to Long Beach Poly. And then I think he ended at Los Alamitos or something like that. And that is typical of today's athletes. And Ryan is not. Ryan is the opposite of what a lot of these kids are.
Yeah, he's been amazing. I wasn't sure how much he was going to run the ball this year, but he's been incredible with that. And you could talk about the touchdown runs, but so many times, like last week, for instance, he would get 4 or 5 tough yards on to give us a first down on a third down. He'd get up, he'd say, "Let's go." He'd pump his fist. I mean, those little things that add up that don't make the stat line are what makes him incredibly special. And we're excited for him to move on to his college career, but we're hoping he's got a few more games in him left here as the playoffs are starting.
I was actually I didn't tell him this until after he signed, but one of the schools that made the final list was Washington State, and I was so hoping that he went there because it's my mom's alma mater, and I've also written some stories for one of their websites. And when, I don't know if you remember, Tyler Helinski committed suicide a few years ago, and they contacted me and had me go to his funeral at Damien, and ever since then they've allowed me to go to some of their games, like one at ASU and this and that and the other. So I was hoping for that. But when he did choose, I said, "Ryan, what was it about Cal?" And he said, it really hit me when he said this. It was such an intelligent thing to go through. He said, "I thought of all the schools and I would have been proud to play for any of them. I would have been happy and successful." He said, "But I said to myself, what's the one education that I could possibly look back on and regret that I didn't choose?" And he said it was Cal. And I looked at him, face to face, and I said, "I totally get it. It makes all the sense in the world." It's a different brand of people in Berkeley, but he'll be fine. Ryan gets along with anybody anywhere, and he's just an incredible athlete. His size alone, his athleticism, is just, he's like the mold for whatever he could. Unlike Guerrero, unlike Ortega, who have that skill, they don't have the same God-given frame that McCulloch is lucky to have. And so I expect huge things from him.
Big time. We hope he has a few more Rio games left here in the postseason. Let's talk about the playoffs. Sure. Look, Rio is in Division 10. They were in Division 7 last year. I'm no fan of this competitive equity thing, the model. I think it needs to be fixed. I need immediately. We're seeing undefeated teams paired up in the first round. We're seeing teams with losing records hosting home games. There's so much to break down. I mean, what are your thoughts on this whole playoff madness we have?
Well, I know you've seen the story that I wrote because I saw you shared it, and some of the comments I read, they were so on par. I read another person. I think you're the one that said, "Is White God really retiring after this year?"
Yes.
Okay, so just none of it makes sense. Like tonight, for example, El Medina. I can't remember what their record is, but Pasadena's 9-1, and they're heading out to the city of Orange to play El Medina tonight. They literally lost their first game of the year and have won 9 straight, including 47-0 beatdown of Muir at the Rose Bowl last week in the tussle. Strangely Wednesday night game. The one that is crazy, I've been texting Dominic Farrar, who I've been friends with for a long time, at Charter Oak, and he thanked me for for sticking up for the kids in the San Gabriel, in the area that I cover. Thanks for advocating for them, because it doesn't make any sense. He said of all 14 divisions, Charter Oak and Yorba Linda are the only 2 10-0 teams facing each other in the first round. That's a championship game dream matchup. Even if you're not a Charter Oak fan, I mean, who doesn't want to see that? The fact that Rio Hondo Prep is on the road when they're 8-1, and yet I think LaSalle and is Muir in the same division as you guys, as Rio?
Yes.
4-6 and 5-5. What? You guys are playing against a 9-1 team, Norwalk. By the way, I did my math on that one too. If you want to give me 60 seconds for a quick breakdown. They have, I know, I'm sure do you know anything about Norwalk, or do you not?
I know they run for 350 yards a game. They've thrown 12 passes on the season, and their line is huge. They won that
Okay.
wing T.
Yeah. So yeah, 9-1. Their only loss was to Gar, which I don't know how Gar beat them, but they have two guys. One guy's name is Michael Mueller. He has 1,500 yards rushing and 23 TDs, and another guy, Herrera, has 1,080 yards. So they have 40 TDs combined. Their quarterback has only thrown the ball 12 times all year, so it's no secret they're going to do what they do. And the interesting thing to me about this game tomorrow is if Rio Hondo Prep is able to establish, the defense and stop their run, if they can get a 2 or 3 score lead, when you're in the wing T and you're down 3 scores or more, it is harder to come back because you can't just throw an 80 or 90-yard pass. So it's going to be really interesting to see how Mark's defense establishes themselves against this team, because there's literally no surprise what they're going to do. But just the fact that they're playing, and I did the state ranking, it's really close. They're 383 in the state by Max Preps, and Rio Hondo Prep is 424. So on paper, in terms of stat wise, it should be a pretty even game. But it is what it is. This isn't for the kids or the coaches. They're going to go out and take care of business. But it just doesn't seem like this. Norwalk should probably be paying LaSalle, and Rio Hondo Prep should be playing Muir or something like that. They've earned that first round matchup. And anytime a league champion and a team with 1 loss or no losses is on the road, there's something really wrong about that. And I don't get it. The fact that Bonita's not in the playoffs at 6-4, but Alamany might be the biggest joke of them all. I don't know if you know. They're 2-5 overall. 2-7 overall. 0-5 in league.
5.
And they have a home game in the same division that 7-3 St. Francis has a road game. Wait, what?
It's criminal.
Bonita's not in the playoffs. They're 6-4. They beat Northview, and they beat Northview and someone else that are league champions. And then they only lost to the Rio Hondo champs, which is Monrovia, by 1 point in the first game of the season. And a couple weeks ago, they lost on basically a walk-off field goal at 10-0 Charter Oak. So something has to change, and I know CIF has to want to get it right. This is not right. There has to be a better way of doing this. And if that means more human interaction, more nerds, putting together the list to make sure, hey, is this a good matchup? Is this a good bracket? I think that makes so much more sense than some formula that. Do you remember last year when St. Francis was in the finals? They played Long Beach Poly, who should be in the one Division 1, if not 2 at the worst. They're playing division, I think it was 4. Yeah. Wait, what? And they didn't. I think they gave up maybe 25 points the whole postseason. And I think it's more important to get it right than to do it a certain way that it just doesn't make any sense. Get it right. Whatever it takes to get it right, do that.
Yeah, and enrollment matters in football more than any other sport. The number of bodies you can put on a field, and maybe Mark Carson has a great idea with a ceiling. So, okay, if your enrollment is this, you can be in Division 14 to Division 10 if you have a really good year. Or if your enrollment is 4,000, okay, you're in Division 1, 2, 3, or 4. But there's a ceiling and a basement. I think that's a pretty fair way to do it. But I mean, you have leagues where teams will go off into other divisions. Everyone in a league should be in the same division, in my opinion. And that wasn't broke too much as far as first, second, or third in a 5 or 6 team league, and 2 teams in a 4-team league. There's just so many things that are wrong with this system. And I do not like the fact that teams don't know what division they're in until the playoff pairings. That's unacceptable. I don't know what the idea is behind that, but how do you not know what division you're in at the start of the season?
And isn't it basically based 100% based on CalPreps?
Yeah, it's your ranking. And
so I don't know. I mean, I couldn't even answer that for you because it doesn't make sense. And it's frustrating to me because there is even though I grew up in the San Gabriel Valley, people who knew me as an athlete knew me as a baseball player. There's nothing. If football was played year round, I'd be the happiest guy on earth. I mean, being on the sidelines, those games, you see and hear things other people in the stands might not see or hear. And it's just, like I said, and I know this will probably sound boring, but get it right. Whatever it takes to get it right, do it, because I heard a couple years ago, I think they said CIF makes 75% of their annual revenue off of football.
Makes sense.
And with something that substantial, get it right. These kids deserve it. The schools deserve it. And it makes for better. It's so cool to be able to see, even if you're just watching a streaming game, and they have the games on for whatever it is, Fox Sports or Prime Tick, whatever it's called these days. High school football is a huge deal. Let's get it right. Give people the best matchup possible and set it up so that teams that did go 10-1, that did go 9-1, are separated in the bracket, and they have a chance of meeting up late, because that's exactly who should be playing in the finals, not in the first round with Yorba Linda and Charter Oak. That doesn't make any sense at all. And I mean so one of the two best teams in that bracket is going to lose tomorrow night. I think they play. Yeah, I think Charter Oak plays at Yorba Linda, and it's just like, it's frustrating.
No,
I don't want to hammer CIF too much, but hopefully they get it right.
I hope it gets fixed soon. Yeah, get it right. Use data that's in front of us to hopefully make better decisions and to go accordingly. So we both love the game of football. You're doing great work, Brian, with your website. I roll over out of bed. It's Saturday. First site I go to, even if I was at the game, I know the outcome. I go to your article and post that and forward that. So thanks for all your support of not just the football program, not just Rio Hondo sports, but all the sports in the area, man. It's really, really great stuff.
Thanks again for having me, Ryan. I mean, Matt, I'm sorry that it took so long. Like I said, I went through COVID. I went through some other stuff. But like you said, we met at the right time of the year, and let's hope for a great playoffs, and hope Rio Hondo Prep does well, because they're a great program and great kids.
Thank you so much. Yeah, be sure to check out our podcast here that we've been doing. It's fun. We interview players every Sunday and have Coach Carson on every Sunday as well. So it's been fun to do something that really no one else is doing. And just one of the many ways, as you said, that we try to raise the bar with the Rio Hondo program. Thanks so much, Brian. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Have a good one. Bye.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Brian Reed-Baiotto. Appreciate the kind words about the Rio Hondo Prep program, and you can really see it in his writing, in his coverage. It really is some of the best high school sports coverage in the area, giving much love to Rio Hondo over the years. It's been a lot of fun hearing him give us such a fine credit there. And it's cool to hear an impartial perspective, really, about the Rio Hondo Prep program, not just this year, but over the years, and kind of the impact that you hear from that others outsiders, I should say, have from the program. He's never heard a Rio Hondo young man swear on the sideline, nor will he ever, more than likely. So congrats to Rio on holding that high standard over the years, as they have done time in and time out. And we hope to see Mr. Brian down the road sometime, maybe in other sports, or maybe here in a postseason run. Appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy schedule to set aside some moments for some Rio Hondo football talk. Okay, now on to our second guest today, our second guest of the preview show here, somebody that is affiliated with Rio, one time was, graduated in 1998, was on 2 CIF championship teams in 1996 and 1997, was on a runner-up team as a sophomore, played up as a quarterback, had to fill in for an injury there in the finals. So a guy that I watched a lot of as a kid. I was 11, 12, 13 years old watching this guy play football. And honestly, he was a guy I really wanted to follow in the footsteps of. I saw Josh Coulter leading Rio Hondo under center, and that's what I wanted to do. And Josh was far better than I ever was at a lot of things, but he was the Rio Hondo Prep quarterback there in the late 90s, made the move to fullback in the 97 season. So no easy transition there, quarterback to fullback, but that tells you the type of guy that Josh Coulter was. He had a couple of brothers and a sister who also went to the school. All 3 Coulter brothers have been on CIF championship football teams. So that's pretty special. But today, Josh Coulter will join us from Dallas, Texas, to talk about his memories of Rio Hondo, maybe some memories about Coach Johnson and Coach Lenny, and just what it means to continue to watch and support the tradition, even though he's 2,000 miles away. He's graduated, 24 years ago, which was his number, by the way, which is pretty cool. Just getting perspective from someone, again, who hasn't been around to see much Rio football, but with this podcast, he has been able to kind of rediscover his love for the program. And I'm sure he has plenty of good little stories in here as well. So let's get to our second guest of the evening on this playoff preview special. Let's bring in from the class of 1998, Josh Coulter. Okay, now joining me is a proud member of the class of 1998, one of my favorite all-time players to watch as a kid. I'm talking about number 24, Josh Coulter. What's going on, man?
Nothing much. How's it going, Matt?
I am doing great. It's awesome having you on. Josh, you were a guy in high school. I was in junior high, just wanted to be just like you, man, quarterback of Rio Hondo Prep. And man, a lot of great nights watching you out there, man.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's always a bit of there's a story behind how I ended up quarterback. I probably would have never become quarterback if my good friend Andy Chang hadn't broken his hand, and his senior year, kind of partway through the season, and so stepped right in and became quarterback for about 2 years there, and then obviously the quarterbacks at Rio Hondo Prep hand the ball off pretty regularly, so. About my senior year, they realized maybe I was better suited to take the ball and run it as a fullback.
Yeah, that was definitely not my forte, but you made the transition well. And when you had a guy like Sergio Villalobos behind you, running things, that was pretty cool. We'll talk more about the playing days, but first, Josh, where are you coming to us from? What's up with you these days? It's been a long time since Rio Hondo.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm coming live from the Dallas area. I live here in Texas now, and have for the last several months. So it's a new transition for us and the family, but doing well and adjusting well to the Texas life here.
How many kids does that family include?
4 kids. I got 4 kids. Yeah, all the way up from a junior in high school and a freshman in high school down to a 3rd grader and a 1st grader.
And do any of them play football or volleyball for the girls or cheerleading or whatever?
Yeah, my daughter is in competitive cheer here in Texas, which is a very big thing. So she's got some competitions coming up later this fall. But yeah, my boys are big into baseball. My oldest still plays for his high school, and outside of that, yeah, just the normal sports stuff that the kids go to.
So is it true that everything's bigger in Texas, whether it's football or cheerleading or whatever?
I will say it is. That is pretty wild when you look at what these facilities are made of, and it's just another level. You have to see it to experience it. That's what you're.
Yeah, and they play all their championship games in Jerry's World there at AT&T Stadiums, all the way down to the 6-man. So that would have been cool, huh? Back in the day, 8-man football championship playing at, I don't know, the Coliseum or something.
Of course, instead of some of those dirt fields, whether it's Boron or some Christian school down in Lake Elsinore or some other unknown locale. So no, it's a great experience for all these kids to be able to play in some of these facilities, and hopefully one day Rio Hondo will see themselves in the Coliseum, maybe against something. I mean, they got that game in the Rose Bowl, which is pretty special, a couple years ago. So you never know what the future holds.
Well, you're a busy dad and family man now these days, Josh, but are you able to follow the program? It's been so long, but you've had 2 brothers go through the school as well. Has the podcast kind of revived your interests at all? That's kind of been the goal this last year. Of
course. Yeah. I mean, I was fortunate enough to go to the playoff game after Charter Oak last year that we had. I think it was at Care Park. So that was a great experience and great to see everybody, and definitely through kind of all your interviews and things, you really have probably revitalized a lot of the alumni. And no, it's great to follow the team and to hear how they're doing, and just to hear kind of an insight with the coaches and the players and just the alumni in general. It's great to see a lot of old faces. I watched the full Jacob Blake interview since he was a teammate of mine, and that was an awesome interview, and happy to be here as well.
Dude, that guy hasn't changed one bit. Looks like he can still run the Power 31, man, in his jersey and everything.
Yeah, he's awesome. And literally everything that he said is 100% spot on. That guy had, he would run the football all the time, and he did a really good job at avoiding hits. And I love blocking for that guy and handing off the ball to him too. He was a pretty special player.
Oh, so much, such a great player. It was such a fun time talking to him and just so humble. Like I didn't do much. I was just scared, running around and just like, wow. Hey, Josh, let's go back to your playing days. 1995, the first championship game I ever attended in a CIF. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. Excuse me. I take that back. First Rio championship game I ever went to. But unfortunately, you guys lost that night by 2 points on a, we'll say, bogus call. But you were quarterback after Andy Chang broke his hand. At what point of the season as a sophomore did you take over quarterback?
I don't remember. I'm trying to remember when I did. It could have been the first couple of games. It could have been, before the season started. I don't remember. I'm sure Andy knows better than I do. But yeah, that was always, I came in as a backup quarterback coming up from JV the year before. I was a fullback down in JV and a defensive end, and kind of got thrown in there. I played quarterback in my younger days in KYL and junior high and things, but no, it was great to kind of step in that moment. And that was, the first time since the 1990 team had seen themselves in the finals. And so, we all grew up as varsity players at that time, watching, Rick and Dave Joe and Todd and everybody that was on that team, Pete Clark and seeing all of our coaches in that game. And it was pretty special to see getting a home game out of that. And unfortunately, it came up a little bit short. As you mentioned, there was some pretty questionable calls in that I'm still holding on to. And
the head slap.
There was a head slap in the end zone. It's the first time I've ever seen that called, but here we are. But it was a great experience, and it really was. I think in a lot of ways the catalyst, kind of on almost a 20 to 25-year run that came after that, and that was a really, really cool experience for sure.
What was it like playing for Coach Randall Johnson as a sophomore? He's handing you the keys to the offense, saying, "Hey, our main guy is down. You're the quarterback." Was he his arm around you type of guy, or was he kind of like slapping in the back, like "let's go" type of guy to Josh Coulter as a sophomore?
It was probably both, because he always grab you, pull you in real tight. You could always smell the coffee on him, and especially on those Wednesday night practices. It's getting late, Mr. Lenny's yelling at us, and Mr. Hampton's, Work Hampton's yelling at us too, and Randy or Mr. Johnson is pulling us in and saying, just don't screw it up. Hand the ball off to Ed Maldonado. Hand the ball off to Josh Krieger and get it done. But I will say, after that championship game that we lost, a real tough one. He was in a true Coach Johnson fashion, came to me and said, "You know what? We probably would have won if we had a halfway decent passing game." And so I've never been punched in the gut harder than that, but I think it was good. It's what I needed to hear, and from there I carried it forward in the future to definitely pull my weight and bring what I have to the table.
Coach Johnson, I got to play for him briefly. I was a freshman. I couldn't get the power 31 pitch in practices, and he's like, "We can't move on to other things till you get this right." He just had a way to chop you down, build you up too. But man, I was scared of him, and we transitioned to Mr. Drain, who was awesome. That next year, though, maybe those words propelled you into some successful times, because you guys, I don't know if you ran the table, but you guys went all the way down to Lake Elsinore, defeated Cal Lutheran down there, the Seahawks down in Elsinore, to win a CIF championship the following year.
Yeah, no, that was a pretty special team. I mean, we all were pretty bitter of what happened the year before, especially for the seniors. We were just coming off a trip that 95 year, and so there was a lot of momentum. But that 96 team was pretty special. I think the closest anybody got was like 30 points to us. Nobody could really touch us. We had a pretty ridiculous backfield with Josh Krieger and Jay Lett, and everybody else. That the Ramos brothers were in there too, and a lot of great players. And that was a really fun team. That's probably one of my more favorite years, my junior year.
Sure thing. Anytime you get to quarterback a championship team, it's special. Even if in my case, I wasn't doing a whole lot, just handed the ball off. But in your case, you had a great year. You guys beat up Cal Lutheran. Now in '97, you switched from quarterback to fullback, and was that just because you wanted to run the ball more?
No, it definitely wasn't anything to do with what I wanted. That's for sure. But it was, I think it was like midway through that first game. We played the number one team that first game in the large division. We were in small, and that was the year, my we weren't in the prep league anymore. We were just kind of on our own trying to find teams to play us, and nobody really wanted to. That was always the biggest challenge. But, midway through that first game, they kind of made the decision, let's switch it up. Maybe Ramos got hurt, something happened. I don't remember what happened, but they made the switch, and really the rest was history after that. I'd always been kind of a fullback that was kind of into a quarterback. Even on the power 31s, I always told, Coach Johnson, I want to run out and I'm going to hit somebody, as a lead blocker, if I can get myself out there. And he said, if you can get yourself out there without me holding, go for it. So that was, a fun little thing that, that was a real power sweep, the whole student body right type of thing. But no, it was a good transition. I got to lead block for Jacob Blake a lot, and he let me do all the hard running in between the tackles. I wanted to hit somebody.
Let's see, 97. So I was 12 years old, and a sixth grader going into seventh or maybe seventh grade at the time. And I love seeing you guys on campus. It was awesome just seeing you guys. I think you guys had team dress all the time. It was just like we looked up to you guys, and you guys were so cool to us, junior high kids, because you knew that you were us just a few years before. There's one play I remember about Josh Coulter, though. I don't remember the game, but something across the left side of the field. You had to go over the top right at the pylon. You got flipped into the end zone. It was a game-tying score or something. Do you remember going head over heels, that crazy play that one time?
Yeah. I can't remember which game it was. Maybe it was that first one that we were trying to punch it in at the end, and you just kind of just launch yourself over. We'd always joked about that, and that's always a kid's dream, is kind of jumping in the end zone. So we had a little fun, and then I just took to the air, and thankfully it worked out without me injuring myself or anything like that.
For sure. Well, you guys, you did it again. You guys won CIF back to back, and was it? See, I got so many memories up in this head of mine. Did you guys play Cal Lutheran again in like the semis, and they wore shirts that said unfinished business or something?
Yeah. The year before, they had this running back, and they talked him up like he was the greatest thing since that's ever touched the football field. We obviously, that didn't end up too well for them, but the next year, I think it was the semis, and just full disclosure, the only reason I know this is my mom, and we'll get into that, but she put together a great photo book, and I've got every game and all these pictures, and so I still have it, I still hold on to it, but it's that was semifinals, Cal Lutheran, and they again, it didn't work out so well that game, and off we went to the championship.
What do you remember, man, if you had to? You guys were victorious. I think it was a blowout game. Taking that Rio uniform off for the last time. It was a good day. It was a happy time. But man, having to take that uniform off, that helmet off for the last time, sing that alma mater for the last time, does that still stick out to you, or were you just, all right, I've run my race in football, I'm good to go? No,
it was definitely bittersweet. We as seniors, and I think every senior that goes to Rio Hondo knows, when that senior year comes around, it's, you don't know when your last game is going to be. You don't know if that's going to be, are you going to make the playoffs, or are you going to have a deep playoff run? And so, you start to really kind of appreciate, and you kind of look back, and you do a lot of that, kind of self-reflection through it all. And, it's a pretty heavy moment for a lot of people, like myself and others that have played since they were 5 years old in some capacity. And, knowing that you're most likely never put on a helmet again and pads, and probably for the better, for our bodies. But, it's a big, heavy moment. And the one thing I do remember about that is how, and that was a time when after the games, and maybe they still do this now, maybe they don't, we would always throw our wristbands and our towels and our gloves and our things at the kids. And they thought it was the greatest thing. And that was like, this is the last time I'm going to do that. Take it all, have it all, and that was kind of the approach with it. And no, it was a good, I know a lot of us hung on the field for a bit later and had a great little get together afterwards, but it was great to be able to end Rio Hondo career at home with the championship. And that's, I think, every football player's dream, for sure.
Oh, no doubt about it. Yeah, they're definitely fortunate to experience that, and you guys earned every bit of it. You mentioned briefly there about your mom. Talk to me about the Coulter family in general. I mean, your mom's still on the sideline today, taking photos of kids she may or may not even know, but she does a great job with that. She gets published in the 210 Prep Sports website all the time. Your brothers, Chris and Kurt, your dad founded the RHP soccer program. I mean, there's a lot going on there. Talk to me about the Coulters.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we're a pretty quiet bunch. We like to, we're pretty low key about everything, but everything always started with my mom and dad, and especially my dad. Longtime coach. That's how I got into, obviously Atlantic Pirates and all of that stuff. But really, the kind of the family in general is doing great. My mom has always been on the sidelines since I was playing, despite me as a teenager saying, "Mom, please go hide somewhere else, or go to the opponent's side of the field, get off of the home sideline." Just me being a high school kid. But I look back on all those pictures now, and all of my family has it from my mom, and it's such great memories, and she does such a great job at it. It's a big passion of hers, and she literally, even to this day, I know after Rio Hondo football games, comes home and goes through all the pictures, cleans them all up, and sends them out. And it's a big passion of hers, and it's great to see her kind of continuing that on for everybody else. And then obviously my brothers, they're doing great. My oldest Chris, or my older brother Chris, not older than me, but the next one in line, Chris, he's doing great, and we always catch up about kind of the playing days and whatnot. And then Kurt's got a couple of kids within the KYL organization, so he's doing good. And then my sister's doing
Megan.
well. She's out in Phoenix as well, kind of doing her stuff as a teacher out there. So yeah, no, we've got a big family, and sports has always been, and football has always been a big thing for us. But yeah, family's doing good otherwise. Great.
Not many families can say that all three sons who played football at Rio Hondo Prep were on a CIF championship team. I mean, you won two. I think Chris was on one of those, and one of them, and then your brother Kurt, your youngest brother Kurt, was a monster. An all CIF type of guy, defensive player of the year. I mean, pretty cool that, hey, 3 for 3 with the Coulter brothers.
No, yeah, it is great. That all of us, I even got to play with Chris for a little bit my senior year, for playoffs and things like that. And, obviously through practices and stuff. And I look out for him. I know how seniors can get with the younger kids on those, on those Wednesday practices and things like that. So, I'm bringing the wood too. So, but anyways, no, Kurt especially was just somebody that really didn't have a lot of fear, and was a great tight end. Really somebody that was really underrated as a tight end, and even more of an animal on the defensive side. Just he was a bull in a china shop, and he never let up. So it was great to see him play. And I saw him in a championship game. I think they played Campbell Hall his championship game when they won as well. So yeah.
Yeah, Kurt and my brother, same class. They were, on that team together. I actually got to play with your brother, Kurt. We lost one of our best guys early in the year. Kurt came up as a freshman and lined up in front of me as a nose tackle. I was always had to show him where to line up and stuff, but he was a monster back then. And then to see his transition all the way to his senior year, where kind of like his older brother, he switched not one position, but two. He went from tight end to wide receiver, defensive end to linebacker, and just dominated, was the best player. So yeah, he scored the only touchdown of that game as well, the 10-7 Campbell Hall game. So I don't know, Josh, he may have given you a run for your money as far as the best Coulter player on the football field. I don't know.
We'll see. I think there's still some debate to be had there, but they definitely wouldn't want to line up against Kurt. That's for sure. He really didn't have an off button, and he accepted all the consequences that came with going full steam ahead at all times.
Oh, dude was a monster. Love that guy so much. And my brother and him were very close friends as well. Josh, outside of football and family, what are you doing now? You're in Dallas, I know, but what took you there? Was it the job? What's career life been like for you since Rio Hondo?
Yeah, no. So I'm a civil engineer by schooling. That was my schooling I went to, and I find myself now as a developer of big infrastructure projects across the country. And so everything from Florida to California to Indiana to everything in between, I oversee big projects, construction projects, and develop them here in the US. So, one of the ones that we chase, I do everything including sports venues and things of that nature. So Aloha Stadium is one that we were kind of looking at and going after. And there's other ones, we got some work that we're doing up in Purdue University. And so it's good to kind of stay kind of within that sports thing where I can.
Oh, for sure, man. That sounds like a blast. You get a lot of traveling. Any unique experiences you could share as far as, I don't know. I'm a big stadium guy. I love going to different venues and like, I don't know the science of it or whatever like you do, but I don't know. I'm a big sports guy, especially sporting environments and venues.
Yeah, no. So it's like some of it, some really cool kind of anecdotes is, I work with a lot of architects. Probably the biggest, most unknown fact is that the biggest concentration of stadium and arena architects is in Kansas City, Missouri. And those are the folks that are doing the new Bill Stadium. They did the new Hotspur Stadium over in Europe, and they do all of those. That's where 70-80% of all stadiums come out of there from an architecture perspective. There's a couple firms that are there locally, and everything's kind of come out of there. And I've got some projects up at other universities, and it's great to go to Purdue. I'm going to a football game this Saturday up there in Indiana, and have a lot of opportunities to go to a lot of other venues and really see kind of the engineering and the architectural side of how these stadiums come together. The fan experience is obviously important, and everything that goes along with it. So there's a lot of things in the background to make the experience, the sight lines, the lighting, the views, everything to go along with it. And you'd be pretty surprised at how much really is thought into every single seat, every what goes there, the video screen and everything included.
Oh, I bet, man. That is so cool to hear. Man, you're doing the Lord's work, in my opinion, man, making the sports venues better. Well, two more things. First off, head coach Mark Carson, who is now the head man for the Cares. He was in high school, what, a couple years older than you, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, he was 5 years older than me. We spent some time actually. We both went our alum of Cal State Fullerton, so there was a little bit of there you
Class
go.
of 08, baby, class of 08.
So I don't know if he said this on the podcast, but he was a great journalist for the baseball team for a number of years, and I spent a lot of time. Kurt Suzuki was on the team back then, Justin Turner, and some of those guys from way back when, and so he would cover the team, and I would go to the games. I'd give Coach Carson a ride to campus every now and then as well. And so no, it was a good little thing that we had going there. And I'd always pick him up in Covina and take him down. He'd always be mad at me because I was generally late most of the time, but it worked out pretty good.
Those West guys, I'd say, especially the ones that live on Milo Ann or the Quiet Street, they're late to everything, in my opinion. They don't know. They don't understand the whole time management thing us East people had to go through day in and day out.
I lived on Milo Ann. I still found myself very, very, very late a lot of times. So.
Oh man. Finally, Josh, if you would, Rio Hondo Prep football is very special to me and many other people. It's a big reason I started doing this, and it's been so fun to see it spread, like, and to the popularity, and for guys to come back and find out how the boys are doing. If you could express how special Rio Hondo football is to you. I mean, we talked about your experiences, but here you are, family life, great career. You're still showing a little involvement in Rio football. So there's something still there. If you would sum up why Rio Hondo Prep football maybe was or still is special to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think the biggest thing that as a high school kid that's going through high school and trying to figure out what all that's about, having team and friends and everything that goes with it, the friends that people are making within high school and through the football team, you have a common bond. You've had so many experiences that are going to carry through with you for your entire life. I'm sure you're still friends with many people, alumni. I'm still friends. Just went to a wedding for someone from the class of '97, over the summer, and we stay in touch. We go on vacation together. We hang out. Very similar to what you've heard from a lot of other people on this podcast. Is these are friends for life, and they will always be friends. And we can pick up after months, years. It doesn't really matter, and we can pick up just like no time has ever passed. And so Rio Hondo Prep and especially the football program really prepares you for life, and it prepares you for the adversity of life, knowing that you can step into just about any situation and you can be successful in it. The moment is not too big. You've seen this before. You've seen adversity. You know what a big stage looks like. And so, I've carried that forward, not only in my personal life, not only with my friends, but also in my professional life. And you can really when I go to work and I work with a big, large team of people, it's very much like a football team. And it's not a Rio Hondo football team that's, 30, 40 kids. This is 60, 70 people that I'm working on a project. And it's just I'm prepared so much more for life because of my experience at Rio Hondo. And I just love seeing the alumni, the excitement, the players, hearing their stories, hearing their experiences of what they're seeing. And it brings back a lot of those memories. And it's great to see kind of that tradition alive, well, and thriving. And if anything, growing. I think the Rio Hondo brand, not only in Southern California, but out, the entire state is grown exponentially. Then it's just great to see. You've got all the support of the alumni behind the football program, and especially you, Matt, and everything that you do here. It's a great thing to see, and we're really proud of the football team and everything everybody's doing to support it.
Thank you so much, Josh Coulter. We're just trying to compete with those big Texas programs that you're surrounded by out there to try to do what we can. Josh, seriously, man, thanks for catching up with me. This was a blast. Good luck in everything. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving and Christmas, man. And we will be in touch for sure. Go Rio.
Absolutely. Go Rio.
Man, what a day of podcasting this has been here on the Charge to Keep podcast. We got the outside perspective from Brian Reed-Baiotto. We got an inside perspective from a great alumni, Josh Coulter, from the late 90s and following the program still while he's living his life out there in Texas. I mean, if this doesn't have you ready for the big playoff game on Friday night at Norwalk High School, then I don't know what will. But we did our best, and I hope you guys are fired up, whether you're listening to this after team dinner on Thursday night or on the way to the game there amongst the families, just leading that car line down the 605 freeway, the 20-mile trip or whatever from campus. I mean, this is what it's all about. There's no more, hey, I wonder what's going to happen. We know who our opponent is. We know who our future opponents could be. And it's do or die, guys. At Rio Hondo Prep, the road ends here or starts here, if you know what I mean, to pursue a 15th championship and put that up in the not the American Savings Pavilion anymore, but the Stiver Center, where 14 other CIF championship banners do hang. This has been a blessing for me, guys. I appreciate all the support. You guys thank me a lot for doing this, but it really is an honor and a privilege to be able to put this together, to talk with great members of the alumni, to talk with great people in the world of high school sports like Brian, and just to kind of unite everyone and get us all on the same page and rowing in the same direction, right? That's what high school football is all about. And that's what Rio Hondo football specifically is all about. It is, well, as I record this, about 25 and a half hours before kickoff. But when this episode is released, we will be officially under the 24-hour countdown. And I'm sure I've told you guys this before, but back in my playing days, man, it's been a long time ago, but I used to set a countdown on my watch and it ticked down just like the scoreboard clock does. And I couldn't wait for that thing to hit zeros. And all day, oh, we got 12 hours. Oh, we got 9 hours, whatever it was. And just excited that we are officially 24 hours away from Rio Hondo's 27th consecutive playoff appearance. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go, Hondo. All right, guys, we'll see you on Friday night. Please make every effort that you can to get out there. This game matters like they all do, but they all matter a little more from here on out. It is the postseason. It is put up or shut up time, and it is an exciting time for the Rio Hondo Prep football program. Enjoy your Friday. I know I will, and I hope to be singing it loud and proud on Friday on the way to the game, and hopefully a lot more on the way home following the game. It is Friday, guys. I'm in love. It is Rio Hondo at Norwalk in the first round of the CIF Division 10 playoffs. Let's go.
I don't care if Monday's blue, Tuesday's gray, Wednesday too.